we respond to a difference in opinion or constructive criticism with temper tantrums. We do not want to be told where we need to improve, where our husbands feel dismissed or disrespected or unheard. And anytime our husband tries to share their opinion or share the problem they are having with us, it ends up in a temper tantrum because we feel that we're wrong and bad, and we become defensive. It's pretty clear to me in my own experience as a woman, and I know many men out there listening share this experience, that most communication with a woman ends up in an argument because we take everything as a personal attack, that we are being made wrong and bad, and then we become incredibly defensive and will push against any criticism or flaw that our husband is pointing out that they would like for us to work on. We become a grown-up child and essentially have a temper tantrum. And this is where, I have a video about Mrs. Right and how men can know when they are right and Mrs. Always Right is wrong, because we constantly make our husbands wrong and bad, that they are the problem, and we are our Mrs. Right, and we always have to be right because we are incapable of having something exposed about us that we need to work on, that we need to look at in ourselves and take accountability for. So we melt down into temper tantrums. And over the years, as I've taught this to women and also taught men this about their wives, a lot of times when we hear that word temper tantrum, we think of a child wailing on the floor and kicking and screaming and having, an outright meltdown, like what you might see in the middle of a grocery store. But temper tantrums from adult women come in different flavors. It's not that's not as common, although I have heard stories of temper tantrums like that. A woman, banging her head against a closet wall or shutting herself in a room and just having a total emotional meltdown. But a lot of times a temper tantrum from a woman can be a little more subtle, and it can be a woman just shutting down and turning into the ice queen. It can be a woman, if a lot of you have wives, if you bring up something that she's done that you would like her to work on, or a tone she has with you, or ways she disrespects you, she'll get very emotional and start crying of like, and say, I'm so bad, I'm so sorry, and just so emotional. That's a temper tantrum. And she might say, I feel so guilty. I'm so sorry. I'm that way. I just can't help it. And I don't know how to change it. And I'm so embarrassed. That's a temper tantrum. That's her not wanting to look at herself and playing the martyr and feeling sorry for herself that she's been busted and called out. I know that in myself. That was very much definitely me, even as a child. When I would get in trouble, I would just start crying and get really emotional and sensitive as a defense mechanism to try to get my parents, mainly my dad, to back off and not give me a punishment, because I wanted to make him feel sorry for me. That's what your wife is doing when she does that. A temper tantrum can be storming off and going into another room. A temper tantrum can look like your wife being just perfectly calm and finding ways to try to point the finger out at you and acting like everything is fine on the outside of, okay, sure, thank you for sharing that with me. But men, you can feel what's really going on inside. You need to trust that. So a temper tantrum can happen completely internally and covertly, to where it's not even showing or being expressed on the outside. And in that temper tantrum, we're just being a grown-up child. A temper tantrum, when you bring up something with your wife, and she gets defensive or doesn't want to look at it, can also look like her giving in to you and giving in to what you want. And then she will purposely sabotage whatever you've decided to be able to say, see, this didn't go, I knew this wouldn't work out. You're wrong. I'm right. Can't have communication. We can't have a safe environment for both spouses to be able to share openly when we act this way as women and we have these temper tantrums. Remember, communication is feeling safe in the environment to be able to be open. and share without being made wrong and without someone's words being weaponized against them. And then as women, we wonder why there's no intimacy in the relationship. And speaking of emotional intimacy, it's because we've sucked it all out. The unsafe environment we create for there to be no constructive communication, then there can be no emotional connection and intimacy with our husbands. We've shut it down by taking everything as a personal attack, wanting to blame them, and having no accountability or willingness to be vulnerable and have accountability to look at ourselves. What we want to realize as women is that accountability and looking at ourselves and taking responsibility for our shortcomings requires vulnerability. It requires being exposed and an openness to be humbled and to look at ourselves. I assure you, ladies, when your husband, as a good man, brings things up with you in the marriage and things that are bothering him and things he sees that are hurting him in the relationship, he is coming from a good place. He's coming from a place of fighting for the marriage. He's fighting for you and he's fighting for himself. He has no malicious intent to make us wrong and bad. They are problem solvers and they want to look at the issues.